Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican 20 Year. I am your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legionaries of Christ, and I am a theology professor. This is a podcast on the StarCrest Production Network. Today we're on day 45, which is we're covering Inter Mirifica, among wonders, among wonderful things, right? Numbers 19 to 22 on the coordination of Catholic media. This will finish chapter 2 on the pastoral application of the church in this document. And then we have one more number to finish the whole document and kind of the conclusion. They call it an appendix, but it's more of a conclusion. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican or frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday, we talked about Catholic media and as is important and all the church should support it. And today, we're going to talk about different offices to look at media and how they help Catholics with it. This is really looking at the different offices down from the Vatican to the Bishop's Conference, the Bishop, and how each level in this should have some concern for media, both in the church and outside of it. But let's read it. We're going to go to paragraph 19 to start. This is on the Pope and the Vatican and media. The council is calling the Pope to make an office on this. Here's the text. In fulfilling his supreme pastoral charge with respect to the media of social communications, the sovereign pontiff has at hand a special office of the Holy See. Moreover, the fathers of the council, freely acceding to the wish of the Secretary for the Supervision of Publication and Entertainment, reverently request that the sovereign pontiff extend the duties and competence of this office to include all media and social communication, including the press and the experts from various countries named to it, including laymen, right? So the council wants to have this office for media. The council wants this kind of thing for the Pope to oversee it, right? And it's both media inside and without. The name here, the Secretary for the Supervision of Publication and Entertainment, has gone through various names. Now we're talking about that dicastery for communication. Pope Francis got rid of different things where there would be secretariat and dicasteries and congregations and all these things. In the Vatican, they're all just dicasteries now. So all the next level under the Pope is just called dicastery. And one of the most important things under there is the Pontifical Council for Social Communications. Interestingly, what we really have is we have less of this kind of supervision of publication and entertainment. Back in the day, you used to have the Index of Prohibited Books. Used to have the Hays Code, which was not explicitly Catholic. It was influenced by the National Legion of Decency. And what it did is said, hey, movies, you need to do this or need to do that. And such a code would help, would make it so that Catholics would be able to, could morally go to the movies and things, right? A lot of movies say it's like you can't even watch them because it's so inappropriate. And so this would put things like you have to imply sexual activity. You can't actually show it. You can't point a gun directly at the camera, things like that, right? And those kind of things are helpful to make media that's less violent, less sexually explicit, but still tells a good story, right? And I wouldn't be opposed to a bunch of those to return. I think it's kind of unlikely today, just with the circumstances we're in, but it's at least theoretically possible. So moving on to paragraph 20, the bishops are responsible for local media, right? So there is kind of a subsidiarity here that each person, each diocese or each local group of dioceses are together. It doesn't really express it here, but I think an interesting thing might be when there are multiple dioceses within the same media market. For example, I live in the Bay Area right now as I'm recording this, and we have San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, which all have the same broadcast TV as far as secular media, right? They each have their own diocesan paper, but as far as broadcast media, they're shared. And maybe some kind of coordination between those bishops, even at that local level, might be good. But let's read paragraph 20. Here's the text. It will be the task of the bishops, however, to watch over such works undertaken in their own diocese, to promote them, and as far as public apostles is concerned, to guide them, not excluding those that are under the direction of exempt religious. So that's pretty straightforward. Exempt religious refers to people like myself. I have to get approval from my superior. I do not, doing this podcast, I didn't see anything with the Bishop of San Jose about this podcast before doing it. I obviously had to get permission from my superiors as religious, but I didn't have to get permission from the local bishop. Many dioceses had or have diocesan newspapers. The printed ones are slowly less and less common. And now more often it's a website with news promoted on social media, things like that. And I think these are great to build community in a local diocese. You find out what's going on around the diocese. You're kind of inspired. You see somebody you know, and that, oh, they were in this, they were carrying the statue for this feast day of Our Lady across the diocese. Oh, great thing. And all those good things that can be in those diocesan papers. So paragraph 21 is talking about national offices, for this. It doesn't mention bishops' conferences explicitly. This was a kind of new thing to have bishops' conferences. The bishops' conferences will be brought about in some of the later documents of Vatican II. So there was kind of informal structures of bishops' conferences. There'd be the U.S. bishops had a little bit together before the council, but really this idea of this permanent bishops' conference, like in the U.S., they meet twice a year and they have different subcommittees doing important things like pro-life and ecumenical dialogue and, etc. Right? So but anyways, this asks for a national office, which getting with, once you have the bishops' conference from, I think, Christus Dominus on bishops or one of the other documents, I forget which one, it comes later in Vatican II, would really fall into the bishops' conference. But here's the text of paragraph 21. Since an effective apostolate on a national scale calls for unity of planning and resources, this sacred synod decrees and orders that national offices for affairs of the press, films, radio, and television be established everywhere and given every aid. It will be the special task of these offices to see to it that the conscience and the faithful are properly instructed with respect to these media. Likewise, they should foster and guide whatever is done by Catholics in these areas. In each country, the direction of such offices should be entrusted to a special committee of the bishops or to a single bishop. Moreover, laymen who are experts in Catholic teaching in these areas and techniques should have a role in these offices. So that's the text, right? It has to have that national office. To an extent, some of this didn't actually work in the U.S. They tried to have a TV channel by the Bishops' Conference. People got so much debate and there was so much overhead and it was not of the greatest quality, so it never really worked. Whereas Catholic TV out of Boston and EWTN out of Alabama have really gotten that kind of at the kind of local / national level. And, maybe we need to revive it because even myself, who's relatively involved, doesn't even know where this office is or what the name of it is or anything. And then there's also that part of instructing the faithful, not just making that media, right? That there's a radically divergent media landscape with politics left and right. There's a little radically divergent as far as super moral, super immoral media. And finally, this is talking again about lay clerical cooperation. It's not just lay people, just clerics, just religious. We're all called as co-responsible. Paragraph 22, our last paragraph for today, talks about international collaboration to help media, so a level between the bishops' conferences and the Vatican. Let's read it. Since the effectiveness of these media reaches beyond the national boundaries and has an impact on individual members of the whole human family, national officers should cooperate among themselves in an international plane. The offices spoken of in number 21 should assiduously work together with their own international Catholic associations. These Catholic international associations are legitimately approved by the Holy See alone and depend on it. Right? So that's pretty straightforward. Collaboration is good. Work internationally. Catholic ethics don't change, and media just reaches across state, country lines. I was going to say state lines, but in the U.S., state lines are within the U.S., right? I know as a Canadian, growing up in Canada, we got a lot of American media, and there's no need for Canadian bishops to issue a particular decree beyond what the U.S. bishops do it in most cases, except for maybe if there's Canadian media or there's, because there is Canadian media, despite what some of you think. A lot of the singers you like are actually Canadian. You have a whole bunch, Justin Bieber, etc. Well, he's not the best example. Justin Bieber, Alanis Morissette, Shania Twain, what's the one? If I Had $1 Million, Bare Naked Ladies, etc. Right? So anyways, that's that. So anyways, now we're going to close. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. This is a listener-supported podcast, and you can donate to help StarQuest produce and other great podcasts at sqpn.com/give. You can give one-time, monthly, or join the StarQuest Patreon. Tomorrow we're going to continue with and conclude Inter Mirifica. It's paragraphs 23 to 24 on Vatican II in the media. It's kind of a conclusion or appendix. Please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which can provide a blueprint for the Church. Go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlcd.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook or X for more information on the podcast. such as playlists for individual documents and a reading plan.